Hey, everybody, and welcome to Life is a Gamble. My name is Richard Munchkin, and my guest today is Jon Rogers. Jon is an old-school bookmaker who started out a few miles from Steubenville, Ohio, where he actually had a storefront sports book and lived through the transition of the old days of carbon paper and using a paper and pencil to record people's bets, to moving offshore and taking bets over the phone, to the internet age. And like anybody in that business, he's got an amazing story to tell. So let's get right into it. Jon Rogers, welcome to Life is a Gamble.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to really go back to the very beginning. And that is, when did you, where did you grow up, and when did you first start gambling? Do you remember the first bet you ever made on anything?
Oh my, yeah. I grew up in Toronto, Ohio, about 9 miles up from Steubenville. Steubenville is a pretty famous town for a lot of these gamblers come out, and casino employees and bosses, and Jimmy the Greek, Dean Martin. So there was gambling all around. And my first adventure was I was in 6th grade Catholic school. The Monsignor asked me if I wanted to go to the racetrack with him.
What? The Monsignor?
Yes. By the way, he was the only good one out there. I'll tell you. You know, I could have made a fortune right now if he would have molested me, but he wouldn't budge. Maybe I wasn't his type, but he was a great guy. Very great. So we go to the racetrack. He gives me a couple dollars. I make a few bets. We have a good time. And when I was in 6th grade, everybody was talking about baseball. So I said, well, you guys want to bet it? And so all the games were even. All you had to do is pick a winner, $25, just straight bets. And it was pretty successful. I won about $7 off of the fellas in a couple of weeks, and I had it in a library book. And I didn't show up for school one day, and they turned in my library book and found that $7, and they wanted to investigate where I got that money from. So they brought me in the office and asked me, and I told them I was, taking baseball games from the other students. So that didn't go other well. They wanted me to bring my mother and dad in, and I said, my mother works at the school. We don't have to bother my dad. So they said, yeah, you do. So the nuns were worse than the FBI because they made me donate the money to church, and I had to duck walk up and down the hall after she beat my knuckles with a ruler. So.
Now, wait a minute. Where was your edge if you just had to pick one side or the other of a baseball game?
Yeah, but they're 6th graders. I mean, what do they know? What do I know?
But still, if you have no juice, right?
An AP would have did pretty good there, but
yeah.
these were 6th graders.
Oh. So you ended up, as an adult, becoming a bookmaker, an actual bookmaker.
Yeah, I went right into high school. I booked in high school. I booked parlays. Only in high school. Got the sheets. I was a freshman. I was booking everybody in the school, and I was probably $300-400 a week. $5-10, right?
Wow.
So there was this pool room that I used to shoot pool in the 7th and 8th grade, and the lady booked numbers and parlays too. So I was a sophomore, and I come home, my mother's crying on the couch. I said, what's wrong? She said, the lady from the pool room called, said you're stealing her business. If my mother don't stop me, they will. And I go, well, Mom, I'll take care of this. Don't worry about it. So I took care of it, and I got up early in the morning and went down, and I threw a brick right through her window. And then I went at lunchtime and played some daily numbers. I said, don't ever call my mother again. And that was the last I heard of her. So
wow.
I continued through high school, and I was. It was odd because when I was in high school, uh, I wasn't allowed to have a paper and a pen, and I knew that I wasn't going to go to college. And I had a bunch of study halls because I need only couple classes to graduate. And they didn't want me with paper and pen in there because they knew what I was up to. So
Wow.
when I graduated, and one kid had wrote in my yearbook that I was the only one that ever said what they were going to do and did. I said I was going to be a bookmaker. So I opened up right out of high school and have walk-in places, and they're not unusual in this area where you can walk in and put a bet down. We had the boards up. We
That's amazing. So I mean, so I guess Steubenville was just a wide open town as far as
uh,
gambling. If you were allowed to have a walk-in,
yeah,
so just like a storefront,
yeah.
and
We had hats. The hats were like 50 some dollars. That way nobody would buy them, and we didn't have to replenish our inventory. So, and then we got into booking daily numbers. The numbers. And I think in the like 78, they started with the Ohio number. The Pennsylvania number started first, then the West Virginia. And we used to take all three states because we're right on the river. So it was called POW, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and West Virginia. So you'd come in, play POW, all three states. They're 50 cents by a dime or something like that. And the ladies really liked that. We paid, when the places were paying uh 5 to 1, 500 to 1, we were paying 600 to 1. So we got a lot of business in the numbers. The numbers was big. Everybody had dream books and numbers, and you know they had them all. We had an old butcher in there. We called him the psychic prognosticator because he everybody used to ask the butcher for a number, and he would give numbers, and sometimes they would hit. So after he retired from them, I had him working in my place, and he brought in all the women customers. It was beautiful.
wow.
One so one day he I asked him, I said, Adam, give me a number. And he seen the layoff sheet. We used to lay off anything over $20. So I write $20 and he tells me 748. I write it down. He sees that. And that night I get a call right after the numbers are drawn, and he said, "You better take care of me. You better take care of me." I said, "What's up, Ad? What's up?" 748 hit right on the button. I said, "That's great. I won like $12,000. It was fantastic." I go down and threw all the tickets for the next day down there. He gave it to everybody in town. I had to pay out like $50,000, and he
Oh
still
my
wanted
God.
me to give him a tip. The psychic prognosticator. But
Wow.
this lasted till Super Bowl 1990. I was having a party at my house up the shop. We were open till the Super Bowl opens. Next thing I
Wait,
know,
wait. Let me stop you just a second. So I would have thought when the state lotteries came in that would have really bit into the numbers business, but no, it was still going strong.
it went better because it was when the states started doing it. They started putting them on TV, and before it was a stock number, and then on the weekends it was a race number. If you're familiar with that, so they would use the last number of the advances, decline, and unchanges, and that's how they would come up with the daily number, daily stock number. And once it started having drawings at 7 and 7:30, and the states were having it. It was big. And the states are paying 500 to 1. You bet a dollar, you win 500. We were paying 600 to 1. Bet a dollar
No.
and get 600. And then we had a deal for them on Mondays. If you come in and they didn't have Sunday numbers there. So if you come in on Monday and played your numbers for all week and paid for all week, you pay for 5 days, get the 6 day free. So that was huge. People like deals, people like sales, they
Sure, sure.
felt good about themselves. So The
Very
numbers
smart.
numbers was very, very big business. And still, you're holding 30-40% on the numbers. So
Yeah.
it's
And was that a bigger business for you than the sports betting, or how did that break down?
yeah, it was probably even because a lot of the customers that played the numbers would come into the front and you'd have to walk into the back to see the board and all the uh the games that were on the board. And then in the back room we had poker machines where you could play poker machines. So we it was just a
Wow, a license to print money.
yes,
That's
it was pretty good. It was pretty good. Even when I was away, the guys who were running the place, they always got the first count. And even when I was away, I made money. They left some for me.
so now. I grew up outside Chicago, and I used to play poker with a couple of pretty large bookmakers, and they had to sort of kick money off to the outfit guys. Was that a problem in Steubenville?
Uh, well, it was Toronto. Now, Steubenville was a different animal. Okay, Steubenville was 9 miles down there. They had their bookies, and there was a lot of paying off that went on down there. But I didn't participate in that. I had I had someone looking out for me for because of my mother grew up in Steubenville, and the guy took a liking to me, and he would let me know what was going on. If somebody was going to try to rob us or somebody was asking questions about us. But no, we didn't pay any policemen. They had a job to do, and
Yeah.
we had a
Did
job.
you did you ever get robbed?
Uh, no, these guys in jail were going to rob us, and he the guy from his name was Phil from the coin store, Phil Matucci from Steubenville, called me up, told me to come down, and he goes, they're talking about, robbing you, and you park in the back. He goes, before it gets dark, move your car around the front. They don't have the balls to rob you from the front. So,
Oh.
because we were right on the street.
Yeah.
So then, we talked to the guys that were thinking about it, and they just changed their minds. So we never had any problems like that.
Oh, that's good. So anyway, you were saying Super Bowl 1990.
Super Bowl 1990, everything's calm, but we were always, knew that they like to rate on Super Bowls, right? So everybody that come in, we had a timestamp on these tickets. So everybody had come in, we just took the tickets and we would run them through the shredder. Now, nobody knew that we were doing that. We didn't have the tickets. We didn't want to have any tickets on us. And we had the janitor in there, and we told him if anything happens, we were filling he had a suit jacket on because he always went to church. And if anything happens, just walk out the door and I'll see you tomorrow. And we were putting the money in his suit jacket. Well, the FBI had the place bugged and they knew the plan. But the only thing they didn't know what the janitor looked like in a suit. They knew what he looked like, wearing a baseball hat, everywhere baseball hats and everything. And when they raided us up there a couple hours before the Super Bowl, George, his IQ was like maybe 70 or whatever, but he had a good heart. He walks right out the door like he's supposed to. So I'm at home by now, and there is Chevrolets all through my yard, about 12, 15 cars, and my garage door's open. And I hear a knock on my door. He walked in the garage, knocked on my door. I open up, and it's George. He said, "Boss, we got raided uptown." I said, "I figured that, George. Who brought you here?" He said, "Keith." I said, "Well, get in Keith's car, and I'll see you tomorrow." Now, the FBI was upstairs searching through the house.
Oh, Jesus.
And there was no cell phones at the time. FBI didn't have them in the 90s. And my house phone rings and they want to talk to the agent in charge, the people uptown. They said, hey, we missed George. He must have walked out the door. We didn't recognize him. Did he show up there? The guy goes, no, we haven't seen him. So they got 0 tickets. They got 0 money. And, they just come in and did the search and seizure. And, they had to come down and ask me, can you ask your mother to sit on the back porch while we search the house? She's giving us a hard time. So that's the Italian in her. She's giving them a hard time. You take my son, you're going to have to take me with you. I said, Mom, just relax. Let them do their job and we could get on with our parties. But the funny story was my niece was like 3 years old. She went to the hospital and her father went to Yale. He was a pretty smart, wise guy. And I used to say to her hospital and I'd make her cry. So she was about 3 years old, and her dad told her, say FBI to him. This is prior to the bus. Say FBI to him. That will make him cry. And I'd act like I cry. It's FBI raids the house. They got hats on FBI. She's 3 years old. I'm sure she can't figure out. She's running around going, FBI, FBI. And the agent goes, how does she know? So that set me back. We had to shut down for a while. And
so if they didn't find any tickets or any money, then did they end up not charging you with anything?
No, they had 750 hours of recordings.
Oh.
So they were dealing with quite a bit of money. So they thought that I was selling drugs. And 750 hours of tape, drugs weren't mentioned one time. So I was probably a bigger, better than I was a bookmaker then. So, and everybody got busted in the area. And I was like, if they had a chart, I would be at the top of the list because I was calling these guys, and betting, and they were laying off to me. So that was it. They got guys from Pittsburgh, Youngstown, East Liverpool, across the river, Weirton. Ironically, nobody in Steubenville. So that went on, and so I was going to fight the case. The worst I could have got with I think the the sentencing guidelines was 12 months down in Moundsville or somewhere. It wouldn't have been too bad. So I said, "No, I'm going to fight it. I want to see this process, how it goes." So I'm not giving up. Not giving up. But I had a problem. I had $750,000 in CDs in the bank because I was claiming my income. And I'm trying to figure out how am I going to get this cash out of there without them, taking it, because they eventually were going to come up and seize that money. They just needed to go through some evidence or whatever. So I go to the bank. I said, I want to cash this CD in early. And I said, I want five $50,000 cashier's checks. They said, okay. I fly to Vegas. I go down, put them up in 5 different hotels. And each morning I go out and I take a $5,000 marker. I play a little bit, probably half hour, 45 minutes, cash out, get the cash, go up to the window. They say, you have any markers? I go, I got a cash deposit. They give me the money. Then I put it in a place out there called the Vault. You ever hear of the Vault?
Oh, yeah. That place got robbed.
Well, thank God I was out of there by then.
Yeah.
And then I went back home. I got the other 500,000. I did the same thing. And at the time, it was great because they would say, what can I do for you? What can I do for you? I said, can you pay for my first class airfare? And I flew out there coach. So I would buy a first class air ticket and they would reimburse me for it, one way on the way home. And I would do that to 2 or 3 hotels. Then they got smart and they start stamping them tickets that they were paid by the Tropicana or paid by Mirage. And I only could use them one time, right? Then you could just cash them in get your money back. So that was a
Yeah.
pretty good gig. So
Yeah, really smart that you paid the tax. So many guys don't want to pay the taxes, but you know, you could have really been screwed if you hadn't paid your taxes.
right, you have to pay. You have to pay and let them figure out if you paid enough.
Yeah,
If you pay zero, it's easy to figure out.
yeah.
So I loafed around Vegas from 90 to 93. We were making bets out there and just trying to figure out what I was going to do, get this case behind me. And they kept delaying it. They didn't charge me. They didn't charge me. They wanted me to give up. And they called in a bunch of people from my hometown. And half of them, or more than half of them, come to me, said, they're calling me in. What should I tell them? I said, tell them the truth. What you know that I did. Don't tell them what you heard I did because you don't, that's hearsay. You could tell them the truth. But because, I was not going to corrupt justice and, give them an easy charge on me. So they went in there and the FBI even told my attorney, he said, he told these guys just to tell the truth. I was a bookmaker. That was it. Was going there 8 o'clock in the morning, leaving at 7 o'clock at night. What do they think I was doing in there?
Right.
So that went on and kept lingering on. Then one of my old customers said, hey, we have this thing. I got this thing in Antigua where they're going to give us 99 years tax free. You could book customers from the United States, but you can't book any local. And I said, how did this come about? He goes, in 1992, a Uruguay treaty within the United States, they had took away their sugar cane down there for something in Antigua, and they give them entertainment. And listed on an entertainment was gaming. So that made it so they could open up a new industry. So the company was already down there. Guy from Las Vegas, Kenny White, had a relative down there, and he knew this guy that bet with me. So Kenny White and them guys opened this business in July 13th. I was just looking to the license, 1993. And they were working it pretty good, but the phone bill it was like $1 US dollar a minute. So you couldn't beat the phone bill. And so by the end of the year, Kenny, they had enough. And this guy asked me if I wanted to go down there and look at it because I wasn't working. I went down there and looked at it. The roads were horrible. There was no air conditioning. The bugs were everywhere. And I said to my friend, I said, I'm going home. And he, like always, interrupted me. He said, I don't blame you. I said, I'm going home to get my stuff. I'm moving here. You
How are you
can't.
going to beat the How are you going to beat the price of the phones?
Well, they come up with the local company come up with that you could use cable and wireless. Uh, this international company, and they were putting a trunk through, or something, and the rates really had changed. They changed the law, and I start taking over. We start making money. Then they informed me we had a $90,000 bill we had to make up. So I was in for it. We went there and it was all paper and pen then, the old days where you write it down on a piece of paper, split the paper, and at night you have a stack of papers like this. One guy's grading the yellow copy, you're grading the white copy, and then you're coming up with figures. It was a lot of work back then, you know.
You
Most
you really lived through this amazing transition in the whole field of sports betting.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, from being on the phone, pencil and paper, carbon copies, all of that, to the internet days.
Yeah, so it ramped up. We did that until, you know, most of these companies were hiring hundreds of employees. We ours at the Carib was $100 minimum bet because we wanted to grow up, not out. And
Yeah.
so we didn't want 100 employees taking the phone. The phone bill was still a little bit expensive. And so the beginning of 97, into 96, you hear something about this internet. In 97, at the end of it, this company come to me and had a program. And we put the program in, and it was working good. But it would only take 150 bets at the same time. So that's not going to work for us because we need a lot more than that. So we end up, a guy was working down there for a company. They had a dispute over money. He come to us, wanted to build us a program. I said, this is too new of you leaving this company. I don't want them to say that I stole you from them. Come back in a month if you're not doing anything. And he come back in about a month. He said, I got this program ready. And it was our own proprietary software. We could make changes on the fly, and off we went. We had everything on there. We had daily numbers from all the states. We put horse racing on there. We had, you could bet the Dow Jones whether it was going up and down.
Oh, wow.
We had these
And your company was called Carib, right? Carib Sports.
Carib sports, yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So we had all these unique things on our site, these squares that they talk about. You start with like 100 blocks and you fill them in, and if the score is 8-6, you do that. Them things sold like crazy. It was like a 10% hold on them things, and they we were selling 50, 60 of them every week.
Wow.
I mean, probably more, but I went down there not knowing anything about these wise guys, how they worked. I'm not a intellectual mathematician, like these guys are setting the lines. But the only thing I had was good grasp of the obvious. So when when they would come in, a guy would come in and bet something, we would move it, and the next guy come in and we would give him the number, move from 4 to 4.5. He wouldn't bet it, so I had to figure, well, I must have something here. He don't want to bet it. Then if I move it from too far, guy might bet it back. Then I just move it back. So after a while, we figured out if we give them a dime on the side and a nickel on a total, they're still going to bet because they know they're going to get paid. So we probably every year we would probably lose $500,000 to the wise guys at dime and a nickel, but our line was strong and we would beat everybody else. And
Did
a
you
lot,
take the information and try to go bet at other places?
no, because the same thing. People were down there. More and more groups are coming to Antigua, right? So when we started advertising we were in Antigua and you could do this legally, more people were coming. And I'll say for every 10 that got down there, 3 or 4 must have got in business, and maybe out of the 4, one made it because there was guys down there just ripping and tearing people off, you know, saying them they could get them this, they get this, they got this connection, that connection, never get anything going.
Mm,
Most of them used the deposit money of customers instead of having their own money. And when they would, burn through the money, they didn't have any money to pay the customers.
yeah.
But Crib, we always did one thing. We kept $2 million over on hand over the deposit money. So we always had it. So when later on in 2003, when the Justice Department got me, they did a
For what? Wait, what? Was this the 1990 case finally? Or
no, the 1990 case was over in 97. They failed to charge me because they had an agent that approached me, and he once I have a lawyer, he's not allowed to talk to me. We were at our country club. We were matched up on a team in a event. Uh, he was trying to intimidate me. A deer ran across the field. He pulled his pistol out and shot at it. I'm sure he just shot over its head to try to intimidate me. We
Wow.
went in there inside, and he was saying, "You should just give up and move on with your life. Just get this behind you and move off." Then he started telling me how they did the whole investigation, and he was drinking, and I was ordering drinks and ordering him drinks, and it's going on and on and on. And I am just getting all the information I ever want to get out of this guy. He's the case agent. So we get to the end, and I said to him, I was done, ready to go. I said, my attorney told me the FBI gets 85% of their information off innocent conversations like this. You guys are trained. And he looked at me and said, who trained you? I said, look, this conversation's over. You're trying to make me feel good about myself. I'm out of here. And he looked at me and he said, if you ever say this conversation took place, I'll be on a witness stand and call you a fucking liar. And who are they going to believe, a bookie or an FBI agent? Well, one of my friends was to the right of him. I looked at him to make sure he heard that. And then his acquaintance was to the left. I looked at him. He kind of nodded that he heard it. I got up and left. So my lawyer always gets in his office like 9 o'clock, and I never would call him till 9:30. He gets things arranged. I said, FBI approached me last night. He goes, no, they didn't. I said, yes, he did. And here's what happened. So he calls the agent's boss up in Columbus, Ohio, and he said, your agent approached my guy. He said, no, he didn't. He said, you better check with your agent. Then he gets a call from that guy's boss in Cincinnati, and he goes, what do I hear about this agent approaching your client? And he told him. And then their case just went all the way. They gave me all my stuff back after 7 years, brought my car back. They had they had seized my house, took the seizure off my house. So I was 1-0 there. And yeah, I still was living in the house because they were trying to go through forfeiture proceedings, and they needed me to be guilty to do that. So they returned everything, and by that time I was in Antigua, and everything was going good. Our program was up and running. Uh, there's all kind of books opening up everywhere. This is 99 or whatever. The 2000, we put credit cards online where you could use your credit card. Before, I remember we were running them. You give us your credit card number. We would run it by hand. And one year we did $500,000 in credit card running by hand. The first month we put our credit cards online, we did $500,000 on that.
Wow.
So the automated system, it was really great. Then we put a casino link on there so people could transfer money, play casinos. It was just the wild, wild west, I'll tell you.
Oh, I remember. Yeah, I was there on the player's side, and initially you had to deal with Western Union trying to send money that way, but then
Oh, yeah.
eventually PayPal came in, and yeah.
We had MoneyGram, and MoneyGram, we had it for a while till someone got jealous and found out about it and called MoneyGram, and we got cut off. But the checks would just print up in the office. I'd be sitting there and the printer would ting. Then like 10, 15 checks would come off, and we would just put them in the bank. It was the greatest thing you ever seen.
Wow.
So we were taking at that time, because we took daily numbers, squares, and all these small bets. We were probably, it was like a big cement mixer. We were probably about a $75 average bet, and we were taking between 150,000 and 200,000 bets a week. So
200,000 bets, not $200,000.
No, 200,000 bets.
Wow.
About 75 in the off season, football and basketball, baseball season was probably down to $52 average bet. But it used to cost us $1.90 to take a bet on the phone. It was costing us about 3 cents on the internet per bet.
Yeah.
So it was fantastic. Everything was coming up. Everything was running good. And then 9/11 happened. 9/11 happened, and then they passed the terrorist bill, and they formed the IRS-CID and given them a bunch of money to investigate internet crimes. And I think Tommy Chong he went to jail for the bongs thing. That was the same
Yeah.
Pittsburgh office that was investigating me. And on June 3rd, 2003, that's when I got raided. I was up in my office in Toronto, and because it's they can only raid a place uh, like offshore if it's illegal in both countries. But it was legal in Antigua. And by this time, we had an office in Belize too, so it was legal there. So all they could do is get me. So they come flying in and get me, and I was paying my taxes again, even though the only thing they left in my office was my quarterly payments. I was paying about 125,000 or 250,000 a quarter in taxes. So that's the only thing they left in my office. So they get everything. I go home and I tell my wife, well, they raided my house too at the same time. She knew exactly what to do. We never talked about it. After I we got like 40 phone calls in the morning over the weekend that were hang-ups, and we were out of town. 8 o'clock in the morning, my phone rings, and I pick it up, and they hang up. I just looked at my wife, and she looked at me, and I said, I have to go to my office to pick up my phone. And I was taking my kids to school, so I go over, and as I drive into my office, is about 250 yards away. A car comes flying around me, blocks me off. Everybody's jumping out of cars. They're screaming, putting their hats on. I open the door of my truck, and he's trying to rip my door off, and he's yelling, "Where's the guns? Where's the guns?" I said, "You got them." I said, "I use pencils." So he shows me the warrant. Obviously, they were in my office before because he was asking me the combination of the safe that no one even knew was in there. And I go over to the phone and I call my lawyer's office. And the secretary says, "Is this John?" I go, "Yeah." She goes, "Your wife just called. We're sending somebody up." So that was pretty good. So I go home and I told her, I said, "They got it all." My wife goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "They got it all today." She says, "I don't know what you're talking about." I said, "We had $7.5 million this morning. Now I think they got it all." She goes, "I'm driving a car with no air conditioning and we got $7.5 million." I said, "Yeah, I'm saving for a rainy day." It's pouring right now. So I go up to the bank. I got a bank account. I'm in the bank account. They got this package. It was my drop dead package. So if I die, my wife would know where everything was. But they had heard me tell my dad where it was because they had my office mic'd up. So they get that, and I got 3 deposit boxes, and they're trying to figure out the round robin of what belongs to what, right? What bank. So I'm up in the bank trying to withdraw money, and they won't only give me 7,000 in cash. And I was building a house at the time. So I end up getting 150 out for my lawyer, 250,000 for the house. And I look over, they're in the safe, they're drilling my deposit box.
Oh, geez.
So in the deposit box, the 3, they finally got them all. I had like $1.5 million in cash and 360 gold coins. And I had one silver bar that was in my office, in my warehouse, they called it. And they made the biggest deal about that. I had a 100-ounce bullion in there, silver bars in his warehouse. It was one bar. So the next day, ironically, I come back to my office and I look at the door. Someone tried to break in. Now, this is after the raid. I said, these criminals are pretty stupid. They're trying to break in my office after raid. What, they think the cops left something there? So here's the whole process again. We're going through the whole process, and we find out later because of Antigua filed a WTO grievance against the United States because they were hampering their banking system and stuff because Antigua was growing with all these sports books, right? So Antigua filed a grievance against the United States that, hey, we're doing this, you know, you told us, you showed us how to set this up. You sent representatives down there how to set this up. You even give us some Indian regulations on how they were handling gambling. And now you want to stop us because they really didn't understand how big the internet was going to get when they did this agreement in 92, right?
Yeah.
They said, oh, fuck, this internet could be big. So to retaliate, they started hunting down the operators in Antigua. And that's when I think Jay Cohen got in the mix, SEX. And they were, Jay Cohen did something different than me. He transmitted a bet. He was on the phone and took a bet from an agent, right? I never transmitted any bet. They tried to get me on the phone, you know, before everybody's was changing their names. That's when I changed mine to I, I I talked to this guy one time. He sent down $250 and he bet $25 bets. Now when somebody in office said he wants to talk to the boss, he wants to send 50,000 down. So I know it's an agent, right? So he gets back and he wants to know my name and everything, and I tell him my name's William. So a couple days later, the phone rings, and I think it's somebody from my hometown. I pick up the phone. This is John. The guy goes, I thought your name was William. I said, John's my middle name. William J. Then I throw out Caesar because in Las Vegas, there was a guy called Montana Mel. We used to hang out at Gene Mayday's place up there, Little Caesars. And he used to call me Big Caesar. Montana Mel was a legend out there. So I go, that's how William J. Caesar was created. So I went with that the rest of the time. But they tried everything. And their last thing that they tried on us was my guy was in Belize. He goes to the FedEx place down there and they asked him, what's in this package? Because you have to put on, you're sending out packages. Like if it was a check, we put documents or whatever. And it wasn't, nothing was wrote on it. He said, I didn't bring that down there. They said, well, it come from mailbox, etc. And it was a big package. And he called me up and he said, there's a package at FedEx. I said, get our attorney, have the police there, have the FedEx investigators get them there. And I want you to videotape opening this box up. So they go all down there and they videotape, open up the box. In between two hard drives, there's a kilo of cocaine.
Wow.
It was going to a laundromat in New York City. So they go, we have the tapes from mailbox, etc. We know what the guy looks like. We know that he got onto a plane to Miami, and we're going to have him picked up there. Good. No more information was ever given to us. That went dead. It was like a dead end. No one said anything. So if that package makes it to the airport and a dog smell it, or because it's not determined what's in the box and they open it up, then they would have the right to come and dismantle our office down there, close our servers down, take everything down, because obviously selling drugs in both countries is illegal, right?
Right.
So they played that dirty trick on us. They did some other tricks. They used the Patriot Act to freeze the corresponding bank's money in Belize and New Orleans, and the government of Belize had to let them know it was okay to take our money. They would give them our money, Carib's money, if they would let the rest of the U.S. dollars flow through, because that would shut Belize's economy down,
Sure.
close. So that's what they did. we went to court down there. We won the fight in the court down there, but the U.S. used the Terrorist Act on us. We were domestic terrorists to seize our money in New Orleans. Now, the word gets out on the internet fast, and so everybody starts taking withdrawals. This is where where we had 2 million over our deposit money. So obviously, we had plenty of money to pay anybody that wanted to withdraw. And they would ask me about. I'd get on the phone and I say, "Listen, if this is going to keep you up at night, take your money out. And when you think you get your money, you could send it back here, and we'll move on." But that's what a lot of people did. Some people left their money there. The Carib never had a problem paying.
Yeah. Wow.
It worked out good, and we give the players, it's a reason to come back to the site every day. Like on you know Tuesday, you could lay $1.02 on the NFL, up to $500. On Wednesday, we would pick 10 or 15 people and give them $250. You know, on Friday, you could lay $1.05 from midnight to 8 o'clock in the morning on college football. So people come back to the site. Our retention rate on customers down there was unbelievable. We had some that day one customers were still there when I left.
Yeah.
So I'm fighting the case, trying to get my money back. Here comes October 13th, 2006. And prior to this, there was a company in England, Sporting Bet, that were going to make us an offer. And it was probably for about $50 million.
Wow.
And so here comes October 13th, 2006. And they had stuffed, they failed to pass against this, they failed to pass an HR bill 9 times on its own. They stuffed this in this port security bill. And at 11 o'clock at night, I was watching C-SPAN, and they passed it. It was on the 2500 page of this document, which no one ever read, that made it, aiding and abetting, traveling, using a banking system, everything. That's what finished it for me. If I continued, my attorney said that they would probably charge me with ongoing criminal enterprise. I'd have no chance to get my money back. So I ended up quitting, and I turned it over to the employees. There was employees in Antigua and Belize, and we even had a legitimate office in London. So we just turned it over to them. I didn't want to all lose their jobs. And, we left them with the deposit money, and, with no one holding the steering wheel a couple of years, they made it like 3 more years, and that was the end of it.
Mm.
All the money was gone. I think they probably stiffed a couple customers, but I was out on October 13th, 2006.
Yeah.
And it was perfect for me because my kids were 9 years old. I could come home, spend all the time with them I wanted. I just had to get through this case. And it was the same thing. Their first offer was to take all my money and give me 25 years. They said I wanted like
Jesus.
$50 million. I go, who wants to feed me for 25 years? So then they come up, they go 50% of the money. And we told them, I said, you're only 50% away from settling this case. Then they tried to pull that Bruce Cutler thing, like did John got to get my lawyer off the case. And they told him they was going to charge him for, I tried to set up a trust one time, and I transferred the money through him. They said he laundered the money, and he wouldn't back off. He was great. But the thing that I knew from the beginning, when you're fighting with the U.S. government, you hire a courtroom attorney. If you hire a guy that's known for making deals, they don't take it serious. They know that they don't have to work. they're going to make a deal.
Yeah.
And he went all the way. We had some tough days. Went all the way to 2012, August 12th, 2012. They said by this time there was $8 million there, and the interest rate, you went through the 2008 period where the banks could have been charging you for keeping their money. And some of the money was froze. The cash they had, it had grown to $8 million. So they said, we'll give you $7.5 million back. And the money that you have in England, you could bring it back here with no taxable implications. And they just wanted to show that they got 500,000 from me and they won, right? Like they won the case because they were dead. The treaty said in that treaty if that these companies can run these businesses, but they were using the term saying, well, we're not after the company, we're after an individual. So we could go after this individual. They were trying to go outside the spirit of the agreement, So they didn't even want that to get out about the treaty because all the rest of their cases would fall apart against everybody else if anybody wanted to go the whole 9 yards, right? And so we went the whole way. We beat them. We give them the $500,000. My lawyer said, listen, we could fight for 2 more years and get it all or get this behind us. And then when they wrote up the agreement, they wrote it up as a deal instead of a forfeiture. So I took it to my tax attorney. He gave me something that's called supplemental authority, where his advice was, you could write this off because this is a business expense. And if you were never in this business, you wouldn't have this expense. And the supplemental authority says, if they come back and they say they don't allow this deduction, then they can only charge you interest, no penalty for not paying. So,
Yeah.
paying the thing. So it worked out. I cleared that statute of limitations and it worked out good. I wrote off all my attorney's fees. I wrote off the $500,000 here, and I'm living happily ever after.
Yeah. Got to spend time with your kids. Had a hell of a ride all those years. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I had a nice ride, and my son went to did his graduate at Columbia, and as a creative writing, and he wrote a book about Brazil because they grew up half the time in Brazil. My wife's Brazilian. We live in Copacabana 3 or 4 months a year, and he wrote a book about Brazil. And his next book he wrote was it's called Humpty Dumpty, and it's about a local bookmaker. There's a part in there. It's about our town and the local bookmaker, but his name's spelled different. JOHNRODGERS. He said, "That's not you, Dad."
Yeah. Yeah.
And the book's not out. But I'll bet it out because the first book had a lot in it about our lives in Brazil too. So
Yeah.
it should be interesting. So.
Well, Jon, I want to thank you for doing this. It's an amazing story. So I really appreciate you taking the time with me today.
I hope I didn't go on too long, and I get to, this is the fire in my belly about the government. I'm 2-0. I told my attorney I was going to write a book one day. I had the same guy for 40 years, right? I was going to write a book one day. It's how to live a life of crime and never be charged with one.
Yeah. Yeah.
He come back and he said, you're going to need a new attorney for that.
Yeah. Well, that's it for this episode, and I want to thank Jon Rogers again for his amazing story. As always, you can reach me at lifeisagamblepod@gmail.com, or you can find me on Twitter at RWM21. Until next time, everybody.